Hi all, let's have a look at another amazing game from London Chess Classic. Levon Aronian was playing Veselin Topalov in round 9. So Topalov at this point hadn't been having such a great tournament. He had quite a few losses. Could he do something in round 9 with the black pieces? We see c4 from Levon, and now g6. This was actually a favourite of Kasparov. It doesn't block. If we play knight f6, we're blocking the f pawn. This has some flexibility sometimes, that the knight can sometimes be deployed on e7 later. Knight c3. For those curious, by the way, if it's popular against c4, but against, say, e4, you might not want, or d4, you might not want a transposition into a Pierce. But against c4, you know, it's more interesting to play an immediate g6 if you're not into the Pierce. So knight c3, c5. Black is controlling that d4 square, and it's going to be further controlling it soon. g3. Here, actually, in live book, I'm not entirely sure. d4 has been played before, but black doesn't have to necessarily take care. There's some options like bishop g7. So okay, we have g3, bishop g7, bishop g2, knight c6. Both sides get on. It looks very logical. Now here we have, quite often played as e5, but here actually we have e6, which is also quite popular. e3, the knight does deploy, not blocking the f pawn. d4, black castles, rook e1. And now, yeah, it looks interesting, this plan. a6 here. Is black really going to be able to play for b5? Well, he gets on with it, as though he is going to be playing for b5. But rook c1 is a kind of warning that b5 has some risk here, I believe. If b5, this wasn't played actually, we see actually b6. Now if b5, which looks as though what black was punting for, maybe this continuation is interesting for white. Maybe a4 here and establish a knight there. It's might be something in it for white there. So black actually didn't commit to that. Played b6. We have knight e2, and now e5. Yes, a completely different plan really. Again, trying to provoke white to close the center, because then black could maybe play h6, f5 later, etc. But white is keeping that central tension, h6, until here, d5 now. And this is quite interesting actually. Perhaps most players would consider knight a7, because it's not entirely bad. It does support maybe b5 later. Let's see. Yeah, from an engine point of view, I think knight a7 is not mentioned. Knight b4, knight a5. Knight a7, I guess white's slightly better. This should be okay for black as well. But in the game, knight b4 was played, hitting a2, yeah, threatening this fork. Now that's protected, which actually means a3's coming up next, because the knight hasn't got any squares. And here, yeah, the engine's like crying out, you know, e4, a5, that will give a square for the knight. So for example, e4, curiously this wasn't played though, bishop takes g7, king takes, this kind of continuation, the knight can actually hop in there, f5. It's interesting. I think white ends up slightly, a slight advantage for white maybe. Okay, so but after rook a1, Topalov plays something different here. So the threat really after rook a1 is explicitly a3, trapping the knight. Guess what Topalov plays? If I give you 5 seconds to pause the video, starting from now. That's fascinating. b5. Now, if white did take this pawn, then knight can be given, for example, the a6 square. You might think. But what about the old threat a3? This is played, isn't it? Just winning the knight. Yes, it's a piece sack. B takes c4. This is what is played. Piece sack for 2 pawns. Now 3 pawns for the moment. You'll note this tactic, knight takes e5, I believe can be answered with d takes. So it's 3 pawns for the moment, but after queen c1 these pawns are a bit loose. Isn't it just going to be 2 pawns? This incredible concept by Topalov, because actually there doesn't seem an easy way of holding the 3 pawns. Let's have a quick look though. Queen c1. Is there a way of playing, for example, bishop e6? Let's just check this out. e4. Yeah, the problem is also, it's not just this, it's the battery. So we could play e4 as a preliminary to bishop takes h6. So actually, yeah, it's incredible. It's going to be 2 pawns per piece now. c3, yeah, this, but it's a dangerous pass pawn is emerging. Takes b3, so it's 2 pawns per piece on the last counts. 4, 5, 6, 7, 3, 4, 5. But dangerous pass pawn here. It's here now that actually queen b1 for a moment is played. This firing line doesn't look too attractive for the queen immediately going to b2. On b2 you might think that's an immediate blockading thing here. This looks quite dangerous because of that, but also the knight might be able to go back to c4. I am actually very curious myself what would be the immediate blockade. I think it might be a plausible move for white actually. It appears to be a plausible move, but it wasn't played immediately. So queen b1, knight f6, and it's here actually queen b2 was played. Queen c7. And now c4, just getting that c3 square, so giving black back another pawn, but getting some control of some squares. Wants to play like e4 and get a grip on the position. But bishop e6, and it looks as though the queen's getting harassed. Knight d7. Now if black has his way, knight c5 to d3 is dangerous. e4. There's also some other possibilities all the time, like e4 opening up this bishop. So that's stopped, but now knight c5, bishop f1, queen b4, and now knight takes e4 you might think is on the cards, but there's always rook a4 in the background here. So after bishop e3, yeah, knight takes e4, there's rook a4, which would be winning material. So that's sneaky. That means actually, yeah, maybe that's not a good idea. Rook fc8 was played, and it's actually kind of different after this. That actually knight takes e4 might be on the cards. Knight d2 was played. Just to give you an idea, it shows actually this pawn's quite dangerous here. If we did play, for example, h3, there's a remarkable variation. I'm just showing this as an example, that actually knight takes e4 isn't entirely winning for white. After rook a4, can you see what black could play here? I'll give you 5 seconds. Okay, queen takes c3. This is an interesting variation which obviously never happened in the game, but this attacking the rook, knight d5, this is actually quite promising for black. If we follow this here, it starts to get very, very promising for black with that pawn. It's probably winning for black, actually. Black's got a clear advantage here. That's a very, very interesting position for black to have. So actually, knight takes e4 might not be answerable with this. So knight d2 holds e4, and we have a5. So a very interesting imbalance in the position. 7 pawns for black. It's back to 3 pawns for the piece, but we have bishop takes, and now rook a4 here, and it seems white's gaining control of the position a bit. Queen c6, bishop d5. That's taken. The knight's pinned to the rook. We have this position, but rook a3, a4. White gains a pawn back, but loses it again. And now e4, it looks dangerous in this position. So it's still 3 pawns for the piece, but now 2 pawns for the piece. Hold on, knight takes. So is this enough? Black has lost his dangerous passed pawn. e4 hitting the queen. It looks a little bit awkward, this position, though. Because there's also, white has to huddle here, because look at the firepower on b3 and a4. I believe if a move like queen e2, it looks as though rook takes b3 is on, so white is in huddle mode. This position, it looks, I believe rook takes b3. Actually, maybe apparently there's better here, actually, in rook d3. It's good I checked that. Rook d3 here. And then that is going to be more than okay for black. Apparently white should do this, and then we have a very interesting position emerging like this, where black's fine. So white did decide to huddle with queen a2 to keep all the pieces like protected. Queen f5, and it looks as though rook d3 is a little bit dangerous now. Rook e1. This is played now. Rook c1. d5. And let's have a look. This position is only 2 pawns for a knight, but the knights are not very well centralized. And in fact, after knight ac5, we have d4, and it looks as though both e3 and d3 are dangerous. Rook a7, as though there's some sort of coordination going on. d3, and white's position is becoming split in 2 with this pawn in the center. Look at that lovely bishop. Rook c7. Although white is a piece up, it's actually difficult to see how white can actually even defend his king effectively after h5. It seems as though this is getting really dangerous, this sort of thing with h4. And then maybe either h3 or hg. It's starting to get really dangerous. Queen h4, queen a4 rather, h4, and yeah, white actually gives back a whole piece here, playing queen takes e4. This is after the move 40 time control. This is move 45. So you might wonder, why on earth give a piece back? Let's have a look. I think white's position is actually going downhill here, even though he's a piece up. If, for example, rook e7, then bishop f8 will repel that. So say we have this position, e3, bishop h6, and d2, kind of, we're getting a connection to black's king here with various resources. Bishop takes e3 is crushing, for example. There's also the back row here. This is just an example of how dangerous this is for white's king to get mated. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure. This position here, although a piece up, it seems tricky. Okay, and if we don't start with losing a tempo of rook e7, what exactly is white doing in this position? The knights are holding each other for dear life here. So this knight can't move, and this knight, let's just see a few candidates. instead of queen takes e4. Knight d2 takes e3. Bishop e5. It seems as though white's king is being viciously attacked. If here I mean, to protect g3, then we just take the, yeah, that's if we move this, yeah, white's king is getting viciously attacked. Yeah, it's I'm not sure what white actually does here. Rook f1, there might be apparently h3. Yeah, it seems as though black's got some sort of huge bind on the position actually, and white's now forced to do this anyway, because now there's a threat of taking here and then queen f3 after. Example, just a certain example, rook takes, or just queen f3 immediately. Queen f3 immediately. Yeah, there just seems to be a strong bind on the position here with various attacking possibilities. So we have this counter piece sack, and this is a moment here where white, sorry, after rook takes b3, white, to stay in the game, it seems, must play rook d7 in this position. This is a must. But black is slightly better. For example, h3, black is slightly better, or bishop h6. Maybe bishop h6 is the best move. For example, like this. So it's not entirely, it's not lost completely for white. I think there's some chances to play on. It's about equal actually. But in the game, actually, white plays g takes h4 instead, and now black is getting a strong advantage, it seems. Bishop h6, a key move which helps support the advanced pawn. Now here, if rook d1, then rook b1 immediately is pretty nasty. What is white doing there? Because this pawn's pushing with support. Yeah, this is a very strong move, bishop h6. We have actually rook f1 being played, but now rook b4 nudging the knight. I think this is a very strong move. If rook b1, again we're back to rook d7, that would be white's idea. He can try and collect this pawn. He's ready to collect this pawn, but by playing this move first, nudging this key centralized knight, this is really disturbing the balance of white's position. f3 tries to support the knight, but now this is very different. Either rook b1 or b2 are very strong here. On rook b1, you might think, isn't this the same rook d7? No, because there's actually a check here. And we've seen this in another game recently, presented on the channel, that the subtle weakening of e3 can win games. Here, getting this check in makes a lot of difference, because look, there's another check and then the rook's lost. We have to lose the exchange. That's a disaster. Yeah, it's just making a subtle weakness on e3 makes a gigantic difference. You know, playing this rook b4 first. So even rook b1 is appears to be very, very strong. Rook b2 is also very, very strong, with the idea of rook c2. Now, if rook d7 here, then check, and rook b1. Yeah, this is horrible for white. So say like this, d2, knight takes, nasty pin, winning a piece. It makes all the difference, getting this f pawn to move. So yeah, very tricky here. So f3, rook b2, very, very strong. White plays knight f6 check. Now knight g4, but it's a very different position now. d2, immediately threatening rook b1, trying to get this pawn queening. Rook d7. Now a very strong move. rook e8, going to e1. After knight f2, rook e1, this pawn is a menace, but for the moment, it's also protected by the bishop, so even though it's not queening, black is actually threatening rook bb1. So what does white do here? White resigned. What does he actually do here? Say king g2. This? Yeah, say this. It's the only move. Take. Queen. Yeah. It's not. It's about the rook as well. It's not just the passed pawn here. Fascinating how this one mistake at the end and Levon collapsed after the counter piece sack. But if he didn't do the counter piece sack, he was in big trouble anyway. So I'm actually very, very happy that Topalov won a game in this tournament. He could say that to his son that he won a game. So yeah, I know it was a bad tournament for him, but I'm sure he could do better in future tournaments. Just prepare more. But he has provided some of the most interesting games of the tournament, though. As a YouTuber, you like to generally one looks at the more decisive games, and compared to the World Chess Championship, these games in this London Chess Classic have been really exciting, and this is just another example of fantastically creative play, because most people would just have given their knight square, but he went for a knight sacrifice in this game with great interesting imbalances in the position. Okay, comments, questions, likes appreciated. Thanks very much.